Yeah, Spotify has their new voice assistant.
Is it ready? I know I heard about that. But is it?
It's coming. I don't know how soon it's gonna come. Basically, you say, "Hey, Spotify," just like you would have thought. The reason I want to talk
But
about
how do you do that? I mean, you do it with your mobile.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to activate another. Because I mean, right now you go say, "Hey Siri," whatever, and then you say, "Play something on Spotify," or I can say, Alexa, play something on Spotify. So how does that go directly to Spotify? Do you need to have it on? Or?
I assume you have to just give it access to your microphone and then it works. I don't know the details, but basically they're creating their own voice assistant. The reason I think this is interesting though is because obviously Spotify is very much trying to own audio and voice, and they're another competitor in it. But the unique advantage that they have over like Amazon and Google in terms of voice is that they have this huge content library, audio content library. And I thought it was really interesting that they're getting into this. I thought it was a smart move too, actually, because I think that they want to own, if you're going to do anything with audio, you think Spotify. I think that's what their goal is. That anything podcasts, audiobooks, music, obviously, and voice commands, they want all of that to be in Spotify. And I think that that's their... I think it's actually really interesting. We'll see how much the adoption rate is of this voice service, but I thought it was really interesting. What do you think?
Well, I think so too, but I also think that the existing ones with Google Assistant and Siri and Alexa, I'm looking because we have one there. They haven't really grown as much as we thought. I was a big advocate of voice marketing, and it still is there.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's been like widespread as I mean, people use it for music and everything, but they don't use it for like Amazon. I mean, maybe it's listening to all that stuff that they say, but they don't use it for saying like something. Hey, order a toothpaste for me, or do this or do that. Things like that.
Some people do, but what I was gonna say is I think people overhyped it too. There's advantages of a screen. And the biggest thing that a screen has versus voice that I didn't understand why people were overhyping voice. I think voice still has a ton of room to grow, but that this idea that, it's just going to replace screens, I thought was absurd.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that.
And because I'll give you a perfect example. Like you just said, buy toothpaste. Okay, which toothpaste? The difference of a screen is that you can look through and see the options of it, okay? And humans are very visual creatures, okay? We like to see things. And so if you just say buy toothpaste, then what is it going to do? Just read you the description of 15 toothpaste? So
yeah,
that was the thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's more for recurring purchases.
Yes,
like
for
you
that
bought
I
something
understand.
before, you can reorder something that I purchased before.
Right.
But sometimes, even when I ask my Alexa tool to basically tell me what orders are coming, I just want to know what is coming and when, and then I have like a 3-minute dissertation with the title, description, pricing, blah 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 blah. It's like too much, It's like you have this order coming today, blah 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 blah.
That's another perfect example of, I think people way underestimated that it's so much faster to read something than to listen to an assistant, especially because the assistants are not smart enough yet to summarize things for you.
Right.
Where it's like, oh yeah, your toothpaste is coming today.
Exactly.
At 4. That's all I need. I don't need to know Crest toothpaste, 8-ounce bottle or whatever.
Great for your teeth and gums and this, and especially the recommended for this and that is coming. It's like, okay, I got it. Just won't tell me, Anyway, so that's but Spotify is different. Obviously, they don't sell any particular merchandise so far. They just basically allow you to.
They will.
Yeah,
I think that's a big.
Well,
play.
yeah, they will, and I will tell you that I was surprised that the Spotify is not getting also into videos in the future, becoming another streaming platform because they have all the database.
I don't know that they're going to go for video because that's not their core strength. They want to be the audio company. There's a million video companies, but really they're the only major audio platform.
But that, again, is the same thing about keeping people within your ecosystem. So if I'm listening to, let's say we were talking about the Bill Simmons now, where he's basically The Ringer, just bought out by Spotify, and you sometimes watch The Ringer or some of the podcasts like Rewatchables and things like that.
Right,
video.
but I go to, you can't be everything.
No, I understand, but I don't think it'll be too hard for them to basically say you're watching The Ringer or you're watching the Rewatchables, this podcast.
But you listen to The Ringer.
Well, you listened to the podcast, but some of them are visual, as you know.
Well, yeah, some do
So
visuals, and
why
I
do
think
I
they
need to-
will.
why
Like
do I
they're exploring with music videos and stuff, but I definitely don't think that they're gonna try to be a streaming service for video. I definitely don't think they're
Well,
gonna do
what
that.
about-
I wouldn't think they should do that.
What about for podcasts that are simulcast on audio and video?
That would be okay.
Okay, well then
That
that's,
would be okay. But
right.
as far as, but it's still audio.
like why would people
like this podcast? Basically.
like this one, for example, we put it on Spotify, but then the video version goes to YouTube in addition to all places, but it's hosted by YouTube. So why would I go to Spotify in the future if I want to listen to this, but then when I want to watch it, I need to go to YouTube? Might as well Spotify just say, hey, upload the video here, and we have the option to let people
Yes.
listen or watch.
That's fine. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying as far as
And
like,
then they can put much more advertising there too.
would they create video shows or
No, I don't think
things?
they
No.
create their own content.
If you're saying to augment and improve the audio with visual additions,
Right.
Yes, but video by itself, no, that's not their strength.
No, they're
There's
not
too
going to
much
create their own
competition
content
there.
like all the major production companies
Right.
are creating. But adding video to their audio component,
Yes, that
it's-
that I would agree with.
I think it's a natural
That's
thing.
the distinction I would make. Video to enhance the audio, not video in just by itself because it's a video.
Right.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm talking about. I think they are basically. I mean, if I were Spotify, I'll say okay, that's the natural thing because majority of the larger podcasts. I mean, we're obviously a very small one, but we do this on video and we edit it, we post it on YouTube, and then it goes to a majority of platforms. Obviously, and all the audio platforms for podcasting, but they also go. Once you have the video on YouTube, you can add it to a majority of websites and things that we have. So if I'm Spotify, I'm trying to keep all these major podcasts, like we said, the Ringer podcast and all that stuff, all the ones that have a video component to say, hey, keep it with us. Don't just go and watch it on YouTube, because I'm sure they will not be happy. If I'm paying
No, I totally get what you're saying.
250 million for the Ringer, and then they have the rewatchables, and then people go to YouTube to watch it, it's like, why did I pay that money? Google
Right,
is
no,
getting...
I definitely see what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you. I
Right.
thought you were saying that they would try to compete with Netflix or something
No,
and
no,
be a
that-
streaming service.
No, I don't think they're going to do that.
Okay.
So.
No, but I do think that Spotify, I'm really interested in Spotify. I actually think that, now, the big play that I think this is total speculation, the ultimate big play would be if Netflix and Spotify merged. I think that would be a power player in the digital content space. Because Netflix would have all the original video content, Spotify would all the original audio content, music, podcasts, video podcasts, all of that. And then if you want original video content, you have Netflix. That would be a monster player. And like I said, the commerce opportunities are massive for both.
Yeah, I mean, if they were to merge with any of these major companies that are in the streaming video arena, I think obviously they're not going to do it with Apple unless Apple buys them. But Apple has already their own platforms and content distribution. Google is similar. Obviously, Amazon has their own Prime and content and everything else. So yeah, I think Netflix will make more sense, but I don't know if Spotify is interested in merging as much as growing and adding value. They're in a shopping spree lately, for sure.
I think they can add value to each other, though.
Yes, they could. I just don't know if Netflix is so much into the audio part.
I think Netflix is into the owning content consumption, and Netflix has no audio, and that's the biggest hole that they have. And if they were to acquire Spotify, then that would fill
Yeah,
the
well, for
hole.
that reason, Amazon that I know of, they don't have any audio either.
Well, they have Amazon Prime Music. But
Yeah, okay, music. Yeah.
But Amazon isn't doing it as their Amazon's core business is not streaming. That's an augmentation. That's an add-on feature to get you to subscribe to Prime so that you
Right.
buy more stuff on Amazon.com. Netflix's core business is you are paying for the content. Because even Disney is a good example where Disney has Disney Plus, but Disney also has a ton of podcasts. They have ESPN podcasts. They have all these companies that they own where they do podcasts. So they have audio. And I think that Disney will probably do some type of audio service as well in the future, whether it's integrated with Disney Plus or separate. I don't know. I don't think it would be separate, honestly. But I think within the ESPN app, within the ESPN app, there already are podcasts.
Yeah, most of the ESPN sports shows are basically simulcast into a podcast.
I think that Disney Plus, I wouldn't be surprised if they have their own audio section of Disney Plus in the future. But Netflix, definitely, I don't think Netflix is going to get into the podcast business. But I think them acquiring Spotify would be massive, because the difference in streaming is that there's a lot of players, but in audio, they're really, even Apple Music, Apple has totally dropped the ball on podcasting. They had the chance to own the space, and they've totally dropped the ball.
I was just listening to another podcast that were talking specifically about that, and I don't know if they dropped the ball or they purposely didn't want to get into that.
I think because it was too small for them.
No, but they
didn't care enough.
They're smart enough to know how it's grown.
But even now, like I forget the numbers, but total podcast revenue is only like a little over $1 billion.
Yeah, but look at all the data that they get from the users and the downloads and everything else. They can tell pretty much what kind of things I like just by the podcast that I listen to.
Yeah,
because they're basically just an aggregator. I mean, all they do is they don't host the podcast. They just stream it from the sources. So
but the problem
when
with them,
they know my user ID and everything when I'm logging in, I want to subscribe to a podcast and then I listen to this and that. So I think that data is what's valuable to them, as opposed to trying to monetize the actual podcast like Spotify does. And on Spotify, as you know, because they monetize and they add advertising to the podcast when people are not Spotify members or subscribers, then some podcasters don't like that, as we know very well, Joe Rogan and some other major players. So I think Apple wants to keep their podcast as is and then just benefit from the database of users that they have.
But the thing is that I think a lot of, as there's so many podcast players out there now that are just better than the Apple podcast player, including Spotify's. As Apple starts to lose users on their podcast, they're not going to have that data anymore. That's what I'm saying.
You think they will lose users?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Apple podcast platform is so bad, it's not even funny.
I don't think it's bad. But it's just not very functional. They've actually...
Yeah, not functional. Bad. It's so bad.
It's bad for searches and things like that.
It's bad if you want to listen to any podcast that's not one of the top 100 podcasts in the world. It is terrible, basically. There's no discoverability. The only discovered is from big media companies.
But I mean, how is that different from Spotify? I mean,
Spotify has discovery algorithms. Why do we post this on YouTube, and why do so many podcasters post on YouTube? For those who don't know, it's not just because we want to be on camera. It's because YouTube has an algorithm that recommends things, so you can have your videos recommended. That's why YouTubers do it. Why do you think every podcaster does clips? Because the clips get in the algorithm. YouTube has that. Apple has no algorithm, no recommendations, nothing. Spotify
So you need to search for something.
Yes, you have to already know about it. But if obviously you don't know about the podcast, you can't search for it.
No, it's definitely not a good search-friendly platform, because even when you know, like I've been searching for a particular guest that I know is in a podcast, but I don't know the name of the podcast, and I just put the name, and all of a sudden I see all these different podcasts that the person has been to and all that stuff. It's just not very friendly for sure. So, all right.